back of the Supra, what we did was we went ahead, removed the cover, and removed the original fuel pump with the flotation system integrated into it. The fuel pump was small, so as I said, we're using an external Bosch pump. So we had to adopt a new pickup line down into it. We decided instead of using rubber to use an aluminum pickup, made it to a -10 90 and adapted to the original 2JZ fuel cell system. Reason for that is we can plug in the system, her gas gauge will still work, and we tap off the positive and negative wire to power up the pump from the main switch, so everything still works from the ignition. Remember, we're using an AEM plug-and-play system, so everything is still going to be integrated in the factory harness. So this makes for a clean installation. Now the trick is, when you use an external pump, you have to use an external filter. We got the Aeromotive filter, which is large. We're going to put that before the pump, okay? The pump came with a very small fitting, which is not good for what we used, so we had the pump fitting modified to take a -10 outlet. So we're pretty much all set with the fuel cell. Now, one thing I forgot to mention was Alfie at Vicker Racing Products is a gentleman that fabricated this for us. And as usual, Alfie does great work, so no complaints there. The system is clean, it's neat. We're going to mount it in the trunk. Her spare will be able to go back in with a little bit of modification, and the car is going to look factory. These pumps, the Bosch pumps, what I like about them over the race pumps is they're still quiet. So the car is going to be pushing some power, but without the noise that usually comes with the bigger pumps, bigger aftermarket external pumps. Okay, so what we did was we assembled the fuel pump with the filter in line. We made a bracket to mount it to. Underneath the bracket is sound deadened padding, so that when the pump starts vibrating, it won't rattle through the car, resonate through the car. We're also going to put a rubber housing on both the pump and the filter to secure it to the bracket, so like double insulation, so you won't get the rattling. As I said earlier, what we did was we used the existing fuel pump housing and adapted it with a slump system, where we ran a tube straight down into it and adapted a -10 fitting on it to pull up the fuel. The trigger now for the new fuel pump, which is here, which requires a little bit more amperage than the stock fuel pump, okay? We ran the power straight from the battery, which is a 12 volt, but to trigger it, we used the relay. So the relay is wired up so that when the key switch comes on, it hits the relay, and the relay sends the needed power to the fuel pump. So we're good with that. So we have the trigger coming directly from the one that used to trigger the original fuel pump in the car, which is this. Look at the difference. Original, upgrade. Original, small, upgrade, big. Big fuel pump with the right combination means big power. Okay, so this is wired up. We're going to close this up. Plug this in. And factory gauge works. Ignition comes on, fuel pump comes on just like it was factory. All right, next thing we're going to do now is I'm going to throw this back in the loom here for it to look nice and neat, because after all, we still want to maintain some factory look. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, with the fuel pump, we used a fuel filter. Okay, this is a race filter with a -10 fitting, because we want, with the slump system, we want as much fuel to come behind the fuel pump as possible. Okay, so now we're going to adopt the -10 fitting into it, which has a rubber seal, so as we tighten it, it seals so we have no leak. Just be careful not to cut that rubber, because if you cut it, then it leaks. It's nice, rubber's gone, it's sealed. All right, next thing we had to do now, since we're not using the factory fuel pump, is we had to make a line, a pickup line from the slum or the pickup to go into the end of the filter. So this is a before pump filter system, which also helps the pump because no residue goes into the pump. All right, now everything is set. Everything sits nice and pretty. We ran a -8 line up from the front underneath the car. Okay, we're gonna connect that to the output of the fuel pump. All right, we're gonna tighten this guy up. Very important, because this is inside, you don't want any leaks, fumes, or actual gas. The good thing about using the existing housing is you still get the ventilation hose that goes to the charcoal canister, so pretty much everything remains stock except for the upgrade fuel pump. Let's stick this guy tight. And once this guy's tight, that should complete the fuel system. All right, now I have to get a wrench to tighten this one up. And what I'm going to do now after this is I'm going to actually loom this so it looks factory. Here's your relay. Mount the relay near the ground, and that's it. She's done. All right, what I'm doing now is I'm removing the injector drivers and the coil driver from the car so that I could prime the turbo. We just put fresh oil in, and now I'm going to prime the turbo to make sure there's oil in the turbo before we start so we don't scuff the bearing. Go ahead. All right, one more time. What we're doing is we're building oil pressure. Okay. As I said, we're building oil pressure so it can go in through the turbo and flow. One more time. Okay. All right. So now that I'm pretty confident we got enough oil up and through the turbo, bearings should be oiled pretty good, and oil is on top of the head. The car has been started in a long time, so the oil being on top of the head is going to help when it starts, so that, you know, it's not dry. Back in, plugged up. All right, go ahead. How you like that? One lick. All right, I'm not gonna rev it. I'm gonna allow it to build up a little. Well, I'm not revving it, but the guy behind the wheel is. Oh well.